You have reached Red Steele's Historical Review. I'm your man, Red Steele, and today I'll be reviewing from Transformers Slag. Transformers Slag. But before I get to the actual review, I just want to go over some of the spectacular details on this packaging. Up front here, you have two display windows showing you both the figure and all of the accessories inside. On the top flat here, you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo, and next to that you have the Autobot symbol, and here it says Heroic Autobot. On top of the packaging here, you have all the steps for Slag's transformation. Down in front of the packaging in the corner it says transforms from dinosaur to robot and back. Then over here you have this beautiful old school illustration of Slag in his robot mode. And in the corner here you have the old school Hasbro emblem. Next to that it says Dinobot flamethrower Slag. Then down here it says includes snap-on weapons and accessories. Then inside of the packaging here on the very top again you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo. Below that you have the actual toy both in his robot mode and in his dinosaur mode. In the corner here it says Dinobot Slag. Then on the other side of the packaging here you have the same exact thing. Then on the bottom of the packaging here, again in the corner you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo, and next to that you have Heroic Autobot. And again you have a picture of Slag both in his robot mode and in his dinosaur mode, and over here you have a listing of all the contents within the packaging. On the very bottom here it says Dinobot Flamethrower Slag. Then on the back of the packaging here, on the very corner, again, you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo. In the other corner here, it says, it is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. It is the world of the Transformers, a world of heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons. In the middle here, you have this beautiful illustration of a battle scene from all the Series 2 Transformers. And on the very bottom here, you have this text spec, which reads, Dinobot Slag, function, flamethrower. Quote, I have no need for friends, even less for enemies. And down here it says, enjoys melting enemies into pools of liquid metal. Like his fellow Dinobots, resents authority. Disruptive, often brawls with his comrades, shoots 3000 Celsius flame up to 80 feet from mouth. Enormous strength, can shatter a brick building with head, uses electron blaster in Dinobot mode. Rash, not too bright, nasty, mean-spirited. Often the other Autobots won't help when he's in trouble. Then over here you have his coded text specs. Then in the very corner here you have his robot points. Transformers Dinobot Slag. Slag was released in 1985 with the suggested retail price of $15.99 and he was available at all major retailers. Slag was released along with the other Transformer Dinobots, Grimlock, Sludge, Snarl, and Swoop. Slag transforms from his dinosaur mode to his robot mode in 5 steps. His accessories include his Energo Sword, Electron Blaster, Rocket Pod, 3 rockets, label sheet, instructions, and text spec decoder. Slag stands 5.5 inches tall and he is meant for fans ages 5 and up. Next I'm going to go ahead and convert Slag from his dinosaur mode all the way to his robot mode. And the first step of that transformation, you have this panel right here and right here. On top of Slag, you have this hinge joint right there. You want to take this first panel, you want to flip it up just like that. Go and do it to the other side, take this panel right here and flip it up just like that. Then step number 2, you have Slag's legs right there and right there. Get a hinge joint right there. You want to take Slag's foot and flip it right into the leg, just like that. Go and do it to the other side. Take Slag's foot and flip it right into the leg, just like that. Then step number 3, go and turn Slag over. You have this piece right here and this piece right here. You want to go and pull them out, just like that. Then step number 4, we'll take Slag's tail now, want to bring it all the way out just like that. Get this piece right here. We'll take this piece and flip it out just like that, and it forms Slag's leg. We'll do it to the other side. Take this piece right here. We're going to flip it out just like that. Then step number 5, get this chest piece right here, which is the chest shield. And it's on a hinge joint, so we want to go ahead and flip it down just like that, and it reveals Slag's head. On the inside of Slag's arms, you have a little tab right there and right there. You want to go and slide this tab forward, it brings out his fist, just like that. Go and do that to your side, take this tab, flip it forward, just like that. So the next thing you want to go and do, you want to go ahead and grab Slag's rocket pod right here. And as I showed you earlier on, inside the rocket pod here, you have this little round disc right here. On Slag's shoulders, you have a circular indent right there and right there. And you're going to want to do it to the right shoulder again, because if you did it on the left shoulder, the rocket pod would be upside down. You're going to put that disc in, you kind of rotate it around, or you get it in whatever way you can. It's kind of hard to do while he's in robot mode. It's a little bit simpler when he was in dinosaur mode. But it's in his shoulder. Now I have Slag arm, this rocket pod. Next accessory I'm going to bring in is the missile. And it arms the same way you did in dinosaur mode. With that peg right here with that little notch, you push it into the spring-loaded rocket launcher, and that little arm should catch on to that little groove just like that. The next accessory I'm going to bring in is this Energo sword. The Energo sword, and we're going to put it right into his fist, because the handle right here is actually a little peg, and his fist has a little porthole, and it should go right into place just like that. The last and final accessory you bring in is the Electron Blaster. In the bottom of this blaster, the handle is actually a little peg. His fist has a little porthole. You just peg it right into place just like that. And now you have Dinobot Slag in his full robot mode. Now that I have Slag in this dinosaur mode and on my display table, I just want to go over some of his play features. Nice thing about Generation 1, they were really big on arming the Transformers while they're in our alt mode. And alt mode's anything that's not the robot mode, like a vehicle mode, an animal mode, and in this case, a dinosaur mode. But if you wanted to arm Slag while he was in dinosaur mode, there is a way to do so. You do that by grabbing a little rocket pod right here. And this rocket pod's really cool because it's spring-loaded. And having spring-loaded missiles and fist projectiles flying from your figures were a big thing in the 80s and a big selling point. In order to arm this rocket pod on Slag, inside this rocket pod you have a circular disc right there. On the inside of his shoulders, you have a circular indent right there, and you want to do it on the right shoulder because if you do it on the left shoulder, this rocket pod will be upside down. You take that disc, you put it right into that indent, and now you have Slag armed with his rocket pod. In order to arm his rocket pod, I'm going to go grab his missile, and I know a lot of collectors are going to cringe because I'm going to take it right out of the missile tree just like that. On the back of this missile, you have this peg right here, and then this peg, you have this little notch right here. That is because the spring-loaded rocket pod has a spring on the inside, and it has a little trigger right here that has a little arm with a hook. Once you push this missile into that porthole, it pushes back that spring, and it catches that little arm that hooks into that little notch right there that kind of prevents it from firing out. In order to fire this missile, you push that trigger down, and then you shoot the missile all the way across. And it does have some distance because that spring is pretty tight, and it's a brand new figure. But I'm going to take this rocket pod, put it off to the side, and take the missile tree, put that off to the side also. Because I want to go and talk about this Slag. And I have to tell you, I've studied this Slag and I've compared it to my Generation 1 Slag, and the details are almost parallel. I mean, it is identical. From the chroming to the die-cast metal, the only difference you can see is in the plastic. And I do believe that these knockoffs are not really knockoffs where someone did reverse engineering and made the molds from the figure. I do believe that they are the same places that produced the originals because, and I have a story, and I don't know if you guys are going to buy this or not, but back in 1990 I moved to Japan to go to school. And I stayed until 1994. And I was in high school, and around 1992 I went to a Japanese toy store, and I discovered this like hidden treasure in Japan. There was a couple stores in this area because I lived in Nagoya, which was it was away from the big cities like Tokyo and Osaka, but it was, it was still kind of country-ish. And I don't think there was a collector's market out where I lived at the time when I first moved out there. And there was one store particular called Bremen, which is a toy store in Japan, and they had a lot of Generation 1. There was another one that was a mom and pop shop right down the street that had more Victory and Master Force, and that's where I picked up my Grand Maximus from. Unfortunately, I missed out on Metro Titan because he was kind of confusing because he had that weird color scheme with Metroplex, and I wasn't really into it, and kicking myself in the butt for that one because years later that one's worth a lot of money. But I did get my Road Caesar, and I got a few other figures from that store. But this other store, Bremen, that had the Generation 1, had a Galvatron, had an Optimus Prime, and Snarl. And the one thing about the Snarl was he was not in the Takara packaging. He was in the Hasbro packaging. You know, he was in the US packaging where he still had that blister tray on the inside. Because a lot of Transformers back in Japan were still being sold in the styrofoam trays on the inside. And, you know, I was a kid, so I had to save my allowance. I did end up picking up that Optimus Prime, which is really cool that I have a Takara Optimus Prime original. But that Snarl was a little different because it was in the US packaging. So when I took him home, I opened him up, and the packaging on the inside was a little bit different. Not so much action figure-wise or toy-wise. It was the inserts that came with the figure. Because the only things that came with the figure were the tech spec decoder, the instructions, and the sticker label. Didn't have any of the other promotional inserts like that insert for that, I think it was the Autobot Command Center base thing that you had to send points in for, or for the Omnibots, or the major insert us kids back in the 80s longed for, where they had every single figures in that collection, like Series 1, Series 2, or Series 3. Didn't have any of that. So I figured maybe it was a mail order promotional figure that ended up on toy shelves, or they got their hands on one and selling them on the shelves, because it had none of that. And I know for a little while they reissued the Dinobots as mail-in, where you mailed in robot points and a certain amount of yen, and you would get a Dinobot. So I figured that's what that was. So when I opened up this version of Slag, he kind of came packaged the exact same way, where he came in the Generation 1 packaging. He had the instruction sticker label, but he did not include any of the promotional material. And even the baggie that they used was kind of the same baggie that they used for that Snarl that I bought back in 1992. But the cool thing about this version of Slag, you get some extra stuff. Like, you have a sticker label sheet with the factory stickers, because you did have to apply some of the stickers on your Transformers back in the day, but there were factory stickers that were already on your Transformers right out of the package. And these stickers right here were on the wing, which they also did apply those stickers onto the figures, and they're the stickers right inside this translucent plastic, but they also included a label for that. Another cool thing was they included the thermal symbols, the pre-rub, post-rub figures. So if I wanted to display him as a pre-rub, I could not put the sticker on. If I want to do post-rub, I could put the sticker on. With the other figures that I bought that were knockoffs / reissues, I applied heat to the sticker and didn't reveal the Autobot symbol. And I know, like, and I'll get to it in a second, my original Generation 1 Slag, the sticker doesn't work anymore. But if you apply enough heat to this sticker, I discovered it actually worked. I don't know if you guys could zoom in on it, but you can see the Autobot symbol. I mean, it's not that bluish green that you get when you, like, really heat it up, but you do have an Autobot. The thermal does work to some degree. Very, very nicely done. So like I said, if you want to display your reissue / knockoff figure, you can do post-rub or pre-rub, because these stickers were kind of like a certificate of authenticity back in the 80s. Very, very cool. And the accessories I'll get into in the robot mode, but I have to say I studied this figure in both robot mode and dinosaur mode, and I noticed that inside this figure, it still has that whole Takara trademark molded on the inside where it says it's from Takara. So I'm not sure if this mold or this specific figure was still being casted from the original Takara mold, because this figure is, like I said, through and through. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my Generation 1 Slag to kind of do a side-by-side comparison. And it's kind of hard to do that because this figure is almost 40 years old, and as you can see, the clear plastic, it's kind of gotten cloudy over time. The chrome's fading a little bit and chipped off, and you see the little black parts of the plastic coming through. Even with the gold chrome, you can see that. And you know, the nice thing about the knockoff, and I hate calling these knockoffs because I do feel like that they might just been a reissue that just did not get discontinued, especially past their shelf life. Maybe Takara commissioned these things to stop production on these figures, but I mean, factories overseas, they can do whatever they want with the molds, so they probably continued producing these figures. But I mean, you got the die-cast metal too. I mean, through and through, it's the details comparing the two figures. And for a second there, I thought I saw a difference right here. This little mold detail right here, I thought was a little bit different. And I think it only looks different because the plastic's a little bit shinier and translucent on the newer version of Slag. So I can kind of see that detail on the front part of the head right here. And you don't really get that from this one. That's only because it's deteriorated a little bit. And over time, all plastic deteriorates. They say plastic lasts forever, but I mean, I've had a lot of mint and seal packaged figures I've had to open over time because the window and just the packaging alone, the plastic they use for the package has deteriorated, and the figures sometimes yellow and get brittle too. So I think this figure feels a little bit more brittle than this figure. I mean, the gray here is a darker gray, but I don't know if the original Dinobots had a darker gray. Maybe over time it lightened up and yellowed or whatnot. But I mean, just comparing the two, and I'm going to rotate them around so you can see what they look like from all angles. I mean, I could not find any differences between the two figures. I mean, the only thing I could see different is the quality of chroming, but that's because the older Generation 1 figure, the chroming's kind of fading and deteriorating, and also the translucent plastic's a little bit cloudier with Generation 1, but that's another issue with time where, you know, this figure has seen a lot of days compared to this figure right here. But I know a lot of Generation 1 purists will be mad at me for saying this, but if you really wanted to get a Generation 1, I don't see anything wrong with collecting the figures that you see on Temu and AliExpress or Wish or wherever you can find these reproductions at, because just from the packaging to the figure, and there are some slight differences in the packaging because I do have a Sunstreaker that I have from Generation 1 in package. You know, it's really worn out, so it's kind of not fair to compare it to the repo version of Sunstreaker because the quality. I know with some of the knockoffs, there's some misspellings with like tech spec or some of the stuff on the packaging. But other than that, with the actual figure, and I know I have Snarl. I bought a Temu Snarl, and he came with some Autobot decals that were black, which I was kind of happy with. And his rocket launcher didn't have the capability of the spring-loaded firing. It just kind of like pegged right in, the missile pegged right into the rocket launcher. So there are some knockoffs that kind of aren't up and up, but I mean, I do believe this Slag has to be a reissue because there's just the quality in this figure is fantastic. I mean, I bought this Snarl or Slag back in 1998, and for you to get an incomplete Dinobot, you're paying $70+. I bought this figure on Yahoo Auctions, which as a eBay auction site that, you know, this existed way before eBay did. It was a free auction site on Yahoo where you could auction off or buy stuff and sell stuff on auction. And it was completely free. Then that went out and Yahoo discontinued that. Then eBay popped up. I'm sure maybe Yahoo had something to do with eBay in the beginning. But I got this figure for about $100, which was cheap because I bought it in a lot of 5, where I paid $500 for all 5 Dinobots, which maybe you wouldn't consider cheap now. But with these individually, you would have probably paid about $140, $150 and up. And I did get each of the Dinobots with all their accessories and their booklets. So to pay only, I think I paid $35 for this with shipping, it's a deal. And I mean, I wouldn't go around buying these up and selling them to like aftermarket shops trying to pass them off as original G1 figures, because you're not going to find a Generation 1 Slag in this kind of condition, even in package, because like I said, plastic deteriorates over time. So they're going to be able to tell, because I do have figures that I opened maybe once and transformed once, but you can tell just by the tightness on their joints that they might snap if you don't take good care of them while you're transforming. But these figures are great figures. I mean, as a Generation 1 purist, I'm on the ropes about whether or not you know, when it comes down to authenticity and whatnot. But if you just want to have something to display, these figures are great. Now that Slag in this robot mode and on my display table, I once again want to go over some of his play features. And I have to say, this figure is fantastic. I mean, just from the chrome detail right here, you got the silver chrome right there, you got the red chrome. I mean, all around the figure, you got the gold chrome for the feet. You get the die-cast metal right here, just the paint for the eyes. Everything about this figure just pops. It's almost like I traveled back to 1985, walked into Sears, and plucked this guy right off the shelf. I mean, this guy is fantastic. I do see some subtle differences in the robot mode. Not so much the figure itself, but a lot of the accessories, which I'll get into in a moment. But I mean, I did end up finding the trademark molded in the figure, and you get to there by lifting up this chest plate right here. You can open this little panel right here. And if you guys are aware, these were Transforming toys that came from Japan originally, which were licensed in America and rebranded as Transformers, because they were originally called Diaclone in Japan, which had little pilots, and that's what this compartment's for right here. That's why you see a lot of Transformers in Series 1 and 2 that had little compartments that could open up that looked like they could man pilots. And even some of the vehicles from Series 1 and 2 did have seats in it where you could put these Diaclone pilots in it. But inside this little compartment here, it says Takara Japan, so I'm guessing that this has to be directly molded from a Takara Diaclone mode or a Takara Transformer mode, because there's no sign of any Hasbro anywhere on this figure. And I did find my Hasbro trademark on my figure, and I'll get into that in a moment. But this figure is just nicely done. Lots of chrome, lots of great detail. And I mean, little differences between the Generation 1 version of Slag and this one right here. And I did see some subtle differences in the weaponry, which I'll get into right now. Because right now, if you look at this version of Slag, on his thigh right here, you do have the trademark information. It does say Hasbro, Takara, Company Limited, and there's even, I can't tell if there's a date on it or not. I don't think there's a, yeah, there is a date on it. It says 1984 if I'm not mistaken, but there's a lot of stuff right here on this thigh. Very nicely done. The swords are almost identical. I have to say the original Generation 1 Slag, the red sword, is brighter. As just looking at the horns for Slag 2, it is brighter red. Now, I do see a difference in that, but that's only in color scheme difference. With even with the plastic with the original Generation 1 Slag, his gray is a whiter gray, and I'm not sure that's from deterioration or a little bit of yellowing in the process, because not sure if fresh out of the factory if they're this gray, because I mean, this Dinobot Slag is just really nice looking, and I mean, the color scheme kind of matches what you see on a cartoon series, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at some old product stills and some pictures of maybe some stock footage of some toys from when they first came out, because you can't really go off their footage on the packaging because, or the film on pictures on the packaging, because they do tend to change the color scheme from the packaging. Plus, the Slag on the packaging is the Diaclone Slag, because he does have that red face. But I mean, you can see there's, I don't know if that's a paint chip or if that's just a mispaint from the original quality control from Slag, but I do see some red paint right there. It's very unusual for me to buy secondhand Slag with all the stickers quickly applied, which they were. I mean, some of the stickers do look different than the Reproduction or the KO version of Slag, like the quality. I know some of the stickers were cut off centers, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. And I believe the insignia that goes on top of Slag's head wasn't pre-cut, and I actually had to cut that out myself. That was a little disappointing, but it didn't really affect the figure in the end. But looking at both figures, I mean, robot modes are identical, but I did see some subtle differences, like in the blaster. You got the Generation 1 blaster. The only difference I saw was this little piece right here. I'm not sure if it's from the molding or if it's meant to have this little peg right there. I don't know if you guys can see it. Little peg right there. Well, my KO reissue version of Slag does not have that peg. It looks like it broke off, maybe in the process of molding, when they kind of like, they do mold some of these weaponry from trees, and they do break them off and package them, and maybe that was part of where the technology where it breaks off from the tree, and the peg broke off entirely, and maybe it wasn't supposed to have a peg. I can put this back in place. The swords are identical, just a slight variance in the color, where the Generation 1 is a brighter red. This is kind of a, I don't know, a darker red, but it matches the horns, which I'm cool with. I'm gonna go take this blast and put it back in his hand. The rocket launcher now. I do know that there's some differences in the rocket launcher. My Generation 1 rocket launcher, of course, I mean, you just saw that. It just kind of fell off because I didn't peg it in great. But it doesn't fire anymore because the spring's worn out. I mean, the furthest it goes is this. It's kind of sad. Oh, it does come out a little bit if you push it hard enough. But there's really no spring to it, you know. You gotta really like push it hard to make it fly. But the front of the rocket launcher here, it looks like the chroming part was only a ring around the blaster here. With the reissue, or the, not, like I said, I gotta say it's a reissue because there wasn't just one factory that churned these figures out. I mean, there was probably a factory in Taiwan, and there was probably a factory in China. But certain factories had slight variances in the way they did their figures, and I'm guessing maybe this rocket launcher was slightly different because this chroming is in the front too. And you see two little vents on the side here. I'm not sure if that's for air, so when it pushes out the missile, some sort of technological maybe advancement. Maybe this, since this is a Hasbro version of Slag, I'm not sure if there's just a difference in where they had the figure produced. But since this is only from Takara, there might have been some differences where maybe this came out as part of the whole reissue thing with the end of Generation 1 in Japan, so they made some differences or some technological advancements in some of the weaponry and the figures and technology, which Hasbro didn't really do with the Dinobots, because I think Dinobots just came out with their original run in the first 3 series, and after that they were just done. It was kaboot with the Dinobots. But I have to say, if you really do want to get into Generation 1 and you don't want to break your bank, I mean, as a collector, I just say no, get the originals. But as a fan of Transformers, if you really want to get into Generation 1 and appreciate how they would have looked back right out of the factory in 1985, 1984, or even 1986, then I would go ahead and invest in some of these. I mean, I wouldn't go off and pass them off as the authentic Generation 1 figures, and it's very hard to tell the difference. And since I do have a Slag, Generation 1 Slag, do a slight comparison, if someone came up to me and tried to pass off a reissue or a knockoff as the original, because there is ways of telling the difference between the Takara reissues from the early 2000s, late 90s. There is ways of telling the difference between those, because they did went ahead and they did reproduce those figures straight from those original molds, so it's very hard to tell. But there are slight differences in those figures also, especially with the weaponry. That's where I noticed the difference. Now, it would be hard if you did find a good Generation 1 figure and maybe you just happen to have a reissued rocket launcher. I mean, there's so many different variances and ways of passing off originals. But I mean, with the knockoffs or the reissues or whatever they're producing in China right now, they are so close to the originals. So if you do want to collect it for your own personal collection, I would say go right ahead and do it. But do not try to pass these off as originals and make money off these figures, because I would hate to think that someone is out there trying to take advantage of, you know, the lack of knowledge that some of these newer collectors have from these original Generation 1 figures. Please be honest and collect these for the love of collecting these figures, because I do love this figure. He is great, and I am going to display him in his box, because I did buy 2 of these figures. I'm going to display this version probably in his robot mode, or maybe in his dinosaur mode, and I'm going to probably have him displayed in his robot mode, because he is the original G right here. But if you guys found any of the information in this review valuable, please like and share this video. Also, if you really enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel, and while you're there, click the bell to be notified of any future videos. I want to thank you guys for watching Steele's Awesome Toy Collector Review. I'll check you out next time.